Hi everyone, Teresa here from Lead Yourself. I'm helping you to lead your life towards more freedom and more happiness by providing insights and tips on how to improve your life when it comes to time, energy and money. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 tips on how to keep the promises that you make to yourself. And be sure to stick around for the 3rd one, because that one has literally changed my life and I really hope it will help you too. And there'll also be a bonus tip at the very end, so hang in there. Do you keep making promises to yourself that you don't keep? The promises that we make to ourselves are usually the most important ones, but they are also the ones that get broken the most. And that's really bad, because what really happens is that we are giving up on our own hopes and dreams. I mean, there was a reason you made those promises, right? And also, when talking about mental well-being, any sort of guilt will cause a massive lack of energy in your life. And one way that guilt is born is, you guessed it, when you make a promise that you don't keep. Looking back over the years, if I listed all of the promises that I made to myself that ended up broken, that list would probably have the potential to fill an entire book. And the word promise completely lost its meaning there for a while. I mean, my self-respect was almost down to 0, and I was really depressed. But since then, I have found my way again, and now I want to share how. If you end up liking this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. That way you'll be notified when more content like this is released. So, now to tip number 1. Take your promises seriously. Because if you don't, you are setting yourself up for failure from the start. So don't take your promises lightly, take them seriously. And there are several ways to do that. One way is to hold yourself accountable to someone else. There's something powerful about that, so declare your promise not only to yourself but also to someone else. If you're having issues taking your commitments seriously, this will help take them to another level. That's because it's much harder to break promises to other people than it is to break promises to yourself. Another way is to write them down and keep them visible, because this will make them real to a greater extent than if they are just in your head. It all comes down to avoiding the traps of thinking like, so what if I break this promise? Nobody else has to know. Or, I was never really serious about this. So, now to tip number 2. Don't promise what you can't deliver. This goes without saying, but it still needs saying. Because many people promise too much and they end up letting everyone, including themselves, down over and over again. And after a while, your promises will lose meaning and people, including you, will stop trusting you. Now, getting out of the situation might be extremely hard. If you, like me, have a long list of broken promises in your past, then the first thing that you need to do is to forgive yourself. Now, that's a separate topic really, but the main idea in this context is to turn your mistakes into learnings. Turn them into something positive. Try writing down what you have promised to do, as well as why you didn't do it. And try to be as honest as possible, because sometimes we lie to ourselves. And most of the time, when you have it black on white on paper like this, you'll be able to identify what went wrong. And think about how you can prevent the same thing from happening again. Once you have gone through this process, I want you to be grateful for the insights that you have gained and keep them with you as learnings. Now you can start with a clean slate, and tip number 3 will help you stay on track from now on. So, here it is. Tip number 3. Design your own rules. Now, this is a bit more unusual, but I've found it to be extremely valuable. It's an evolution of tip number 2, where you ensure that you always can deliver no matter what. It's about formulating your promises for success. Now, how do you do that? If you have promised yourself to stick with something, then the key is to plan for dealing with any exceptions that might come up. So for instance, if you're planning to exercise every day, take note that, for instance, when you're sick, you're excused. I've personally had the very bad habit of always quitting an exercise habit once I get sick. And planning for exceptions has helped me to stop thinking about sickness as a failure. And I was suddenly able to forgive and move on. So instead of saying, I promise to exercise every day, say, I promise to exercise every day as long as my health allows. And you might even add something like, those times when I can't exercise, I will spend 30 minutes meditating instead. And that way it will still feel like you do something instead of just skipping out. And another example, instead of saying, I promise to stop eating sugar, say, I promise to not eat anything with more than 5% sugar except for Christmas and Easter when I'm allowed 1 cup of candy. I added a 5% rule in there because having a 0 tolerance for sugar is extremely hard. And if you start looking at the labels on food, you'll start to see why. But the spirit of the promise is still to try to not eat sugar, so that's what will happen. We just made it easier to stick to it. It all comes down to defining what success looks like and realize that you own that definition. The more specific you can be, the better, and the more situations that you can predict and design around, the better. Once I was constantly breaking promises to myself. And it wasn't because they weren't important or because I wasn't committed. It was because I'm an extreme perfectionist. If I missed out on a commitment once, coming back from that was almost impossible. And then I found this way of designing my own rules, and I started doing that. It just made my promises so much more resilient, and I find them so much easier to keep now. So this has literally changed my approach to habits and commitments in general, and I've also grown my ability to forgive myself in the process. Another way of staying on top of things is if you're regularly doing something and you know that you won't be able to do that for a while in the future, then plan for that. For instance, I have a commitment to post at least 1 YouTube video every week. But recording requires silence, and during the upcoming vacation, all of my 3 kids will be home 24/7, and that will just be so much more chaos at home. But instead of sitting around waiting for vacation and then beating myself up for not having the time and space for doing those recordings, I've actually found time in my calendar to batch up some videos now so that I don't have to worry about it later. So then I can relax and spend time with my family instead. Now for your challenge. Take one promise that you currently have a hard time keeping and make it more resilient by planning for what you should be doing when things come up. And don't forget to inspire others by writing in the comments what you came up with. And that way we can all grow together. And the bonus tip. Make sure to always celebrate success. Schedule something to look forward to if you keep your promises and commitments. I mean, there's nothing wrong with providing a bit of extra motivation, right? That's it for today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when new content is available for you. But for now, make sure to check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching. Bye!